because that is not what the rest of people, society experiences on their daily routine. So it is almost challenging in our case because you have to make sure you also comport yourself normally, and you're able to respond to every compliment that people accord to you by virtue of the fact that you are a television personality, and comport yourself, observe decorum in your interaction with everybody, be very humble, and be nice to everyone because that is what they expect. So that is the different part of it. Otherwise, I interact with everybody very normally.
What advice can you give to the general public about the way they treat a public figure?
Okay, well, I'm not sure about the context in which you are talking. I'm not sure if, again, public figures are treated differently from the rest of society. But I can say certainly that there are the same rules, standards, that apply to both public figures, so-called public figures, and other members of society. You don't have any two, different laws for public figures and other members of society. The only difference is the fact that people expect public figures to comport themselves and behave within the parameters of decency and the law, even though this applies to everyone again. And because you are a so-called public figure, anytime there is an incident around you, there is a likelihood that it will generate more public interest and media attention. And the media attention here is a self-serving one because that is why the media is in business, to capture stories of public interest and put them out there for the public to see. So if there is any difference or peculiarity around this, is the fact that anything that happens around public figures is likely to generate more public or media interest. Otherwise, we are all, I think, bound by the same laws, by the same moral etiquette, by the same standards of decency, and so on. So the public certainly is bound to react sometimes in a sensational manner, or the media is bound to publicize stories around public figures sometimes sensationally, simply because there are people that everybody looks up to. So that, I guess, is the only difference. Otherwise, we are all bound by the same laws, by the same expectations as decent people and as responsible members of society.
Thank you.
There, he's the editor-in-chief of the newsroom of the Gambia Radio and Television Services, a very humble public figure. He's denying, I think he's like, I'm not sure I'm one, but yes, Adi, you're a public figure. Well, we have a whole lot of... Yes.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he is. Yes, you are. We have a whole lot of text messages coming in and of course, email. This topic is very, very hot. We have a whole lot. I'm sorry I will not be able to read all of this. But Dr. Sidibe, this can be very, very, very stressful. Sometimes I just feel like, close my drawers up. I don't want to see anybody.
Exactly. And that is one of the demerits of being a public figure or a prominent person, because people are so much focused. Attentions, Adi mentioned it, attentions are focused on you wherever you go, be it a wedding ceremony, market, wherever.
That's why I don't go.
People will focus. And of course, there's nothing wrong in greeting you, appreciating your good job. But it can be very, very fatiguing.
Yes,
and
definitely.
The fact that you
very
have
tiring.
He mentioned the word comport. You have to adjust yourself more or better than the ordinary person, because everybody, you are conscious that everybody is watching you. So this makes it very uncomfortable. Psychologically stressful and strenuous, and sometimes physical.
But what I also
because
want to...
the engagements also as a public figure makes it physically very strenuous. Yes, go ahead.
But what I also want to ask you is that you feel very lonely inside.
Yeah.
People feel that, you know, okay, because if people see you on TV most of the time, hamnako, but they actually don't know you.
Yeah.
They just see your picture. And then, but inside you, you're very lonely.
Yes.
Because one, you don't know who should I trust. You don't go to people's houses. You're always by yourself.
Exactly. That's the problem. There is what we call in psychology approach avoidance conflict. I mean, you want to approach people, but at the same time you want to avoid, you know, being embarrassed or being misunderstood. So that makes it also, again, very stressful. It's another stress agent.
Yeah.
So as Adi said, and as I said earlier, be yourself as much as possible.
Yeah.
Be yourself. When people talk to you, be natural. Like you want to talk to me, when I'm busy, I say, well, sorry, I'm busy. I have time, you want to talk, I have time, I want to talk. But be normal. You go to the market, I go to the market, I bargain. Don't say, oh, because I'm seen on TV all the time, so I should be too good to bargain. That's the thing. Be yourself, because where you are false, then it will affect you again. That brings me to the point where some people impose popularity or try to impose. They want to be seen, they want to be known. You and I and Adi, I think ours is spontaneous.
Yeah.
You are known because you are serving society in a certain capacity as a lecturer at the university or as somebody who comes and talks on TV and as a newsreader and so on. But there are people, I mean, I'm talking about this psychologically, who wants to be seen everywhere. In fact, it's called self-imposed popularity. And if you cannot cope, especially if you are not delivering, then in fact you'll be rejecting people instead of, rather than making them happy, you'll be that is also very stressful. Because you know that people don't appreciate what you do. At the same time, you impose yourself because you want to be seen. It's also a psychological demand, need or drive to be popular. I prefer to be very spontaneous, be what I am. Let my work or my performance dictate how people, you know, how people categorize me or whatever. But humility is very important.
Yeah.
How should a public figure comport himself or herself is to be very humble. Be yourself.
Yeah.
Be very humble. Don't show your wings because you happen to be in a very high position. You happen to be very rich. If you can, but there are personality differences. You know what I mean? There are people, individual people who have the drive to be very pompous and so on.
Only if people can understand that we also are human. And sometimes you have your mood swings, and sometimes you just feel like you're down, and you don't want to be talking.
And you don't need to isolate yourself because you're a public figure. I want to come to that very quickly as a psychologist, because isolation and loneliness can be very distressful. Go out there and vent it. Catharsis.
Well, where do you go?
You have a neighbor you can chat with. You have a relative you can chat with. You have a husband.
But then you don't know which neighbor to trust. You go to a neighbor's house. By the time you leave the door,
depends on what you say.
Yeah.
I feel, Fatu, I can talk to anybody.
Yeah. But you know, people
because I know what to say.
But people can always, you know, add things and spice them up, and
if they add things.
Then you don't have control over that.
Unfortunately, maybe sometimes my yardstick is very high.
You don't have control over that.
Everybody to be a psychologist.
You see? That's because you don't have control over what people say.
Yeah, but you have, as a human being, you have to interact with human beings.
Yeah. Well,
otherwise, loneliness drives you into depression. You have to learn to interact, and you have to have people you can confer with. Not necessarily.
But with TVs and internet and everything around, so people don't get bored.
Yeah, but that is TVs. That's monologue. I mean, that is you're not having the human face of it. This is what is dangerous. I tell I'm talking to you about because my clients come to me to say I'm very lonely, I'm very depressed, and I have nobody to talk to. But I say, you're talking to me now. Am I not a body? For example. So you see, because no, a good friend.
Yeah.
Even if the friend goes and distorts it and so on, that's unfortunate also. Says that, Nasiman, or somebody came to me today to talk about how grieved or how depressed she is over something. That is, if somebody confers in you, has confidence in you. In fact, that is one thing that is very important in psychological practice. Confidentiality. Keeping I'm dealing with a number of people who will, I will never tell anybody.
Time is,
you know what I mean? So
yes.
this is how it should be. When somebody comes to you in confidence to ventilate,